One of the most common questions I get asked from a prospective buyer in Fulshear is whether or not they should consider new construction or resale. And my answer, as with all things, is it depends. Every buyer has their own hopes, wishes, dreams, and budget, and it's my job to help you pick through the pros and cons of resale and new construction in Fulshear. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bauerschlag, a local real estate agent right here in West Houston, helping people just like you relocate from all over the country right to our great city. One of the major factors that people consider when buying new construction or resale in Fulshear is, of course, location. Now, when I think about new construction in Fulshear, what I currently visualize is everything that's up and down 359. Now, if you imagine 359, it's a north-south corridor that connects I-10 and the West Park Toll. I also think about new construction that's up and down Texas Heritage Parkway, just a couple miles over. So if you're thinking about resale in Fulshear, I would imagine that that's more along the lines of the West Park Toll, south of 1093, and that's going to be your Fullbrook on Fulshear Creek. It's going to be your Weston Lakes, your actual Fullbrook, maybe north of 1093, but closer in towards 1463, which is over in Cross Creek Ranch. Those are all beautiful communities that have been fully built, fleshed out, and people know what they're going to get when they're buying those homes. Now, if you were to imagine 359, if you haven't driven up and down that road before, it is a farm to market road. So when you drive it, it's got the flashing lights on there that say slow down. They're just now putting stoplights up and down that road. And because it is a farm to market road, it is still kind of bumpy, right? So it very much still looks like, I would say, an industrial kind of through street, and not necessarily something that's like a master plan community and beautiful and residential, because it isn't. So if you're looking at new construction as it stands today, I would say the highest density is going to be on that farm to market 359 road. If you're looking at resale, it's pretty much going to be up and down that 1093 or West Park Toll corridor. Now, if location is not your number one driver in whether or not you're choosing new construction or resale, then price probably is. And right here in 2025, as we round out this year, we are at a very strange point in our economy where new construction is actually less expensive in general than resale. And usually that's flipped on its head. New construction, generally speaking, has reliably been at least 5%, if not 10% more expensive than whatever resale was. But right now, because of the deals that builders are putting on the ground, resale might be more expensive than what these new builds can offer. What they're really doing is they're incentivizing people's interest rates, which is dropping their overall monthly payments. But they're also reducing the prices or the sticker price on that home as well, which makes it a much more affordable option than using those same dollars and putting them towards something with a market interest rate over on resale. So if price is a driver in your decision, then it might really make sense for us to go up and down that 359 corridor and see what we can negotiate with a builder. Now, if you're watching this video, then you probably know by doing other Google searches that Fulshear has experienced absolutely explosive growth in the last 5 years. And what that means is that if you happen to be moving here with children, you need to be very mindful of what that commute is going to look like for your kids. So what I mean by that is that right now, the schools that are the closest to the neighborhoods themselves, those children are probably gonna have the best shot at having the least amount of time on a bus before and after school. With new construction, with all of these neighborhoods, they're trying to build schools quickly to accommodate the populations that are moving into the area. But the reality is that these schools are not opening fast enough to absorb the populations that are coming in. So what that translates to is that the further away you live from the school that your child is currently attending, the higher likelihood it is that your child is going to sit on that bus way past an hour, sometimes up to 2 hours before and after school on a day-to-day basis. And I would say that's pretty significant. And that's not something that you're really gonna know unless you know a local in and around the area. So pros and cons, if you don't have school-aged children, then new construction, knock yourself out. It's gonna be completely insignificant. If you do have school-aged children, you need to be right on top of that zoning pattern where you can kind of get there in a new construction community, or you need to be prepared to drive your child so they're not on the bus for 3 to 4 hours a day. Another very significant factor in Fulshear, Texas on whether or not you're going to pursue new construction or resale are going to be the amenities. Now, Fulshear has been building out reasonably aggressively since 2008, 9, 10, but it really got explosive within the last 5 years. So if you consider where those resale communities are that are well established, where all of the amenities and creature comforts tend to be, think about 1463 and 1093, so the West Park Toll, as being kind of like the eastward intersection and hub of where all those restaurants and shopping and grocery stores and churches and gyms, all of those are going to be centered towards 1463 and the West Park Toll. And as you go further west down the West Park Toll, it gets less and less dense. You see more and more mom and pop shops, which is great. It does give you that small town feel, but you're also going to be further, not necessarily by distance, but by traffic commuting time to getting to those things that you might be used to having wherever you're moving from. So put differently, if you're considering new construction that's heavily concentrated up and down 359, it kind of cuts like a northwest angle, which means that if you're trying to get to I-10, you're going further and further away from the city center, right? Now, the good news is that at Texas Heritage Parkway and I-10, a brand new shopping complex with Target and an H-E-B has been announced. And if you Google it, you'll find that it's in and around Jordan Ranch. But it's Texas Heritage Parkway and I-10, and that's where a brand new shopping center is going to be. And I think that'll be a huge boon to the people of Fulshear so that they don't have to go into Katy to get to, honestly, a Target. So as time goes on, I think this will improve, but as for now, I would say you're still 2 or 3 years away from being able to get to things somewhat easily if you're on that 359 corridor. Another major thing to consider between new construction and resale in Fulshear, Texas is going to be the tax rate. Now, tax rates are driven by municipal utility bonds in the outskirts of the greater Houston area. And what I mean by that is that if you imagine the land that's being developed, it was very much someone's ranch, or it was farmland, or it was just uninhabited, and it had no utilities or infrastructure or sewer, because why would it need that, right? So money has to be raised in the form of debt in order to put in things like water towers and sewage drains and gas lines and electricity so that people can actually inhabit these areas. And that's expensive. So the people that buy in new construction communities become responsible then for paying off these MUD bonds, or municipal utility bonds, in the form of their property taxes. So when you move into new construction, you can expect that your tax rate is probably going to be above 3.5%. Now, those tax rates come down as more people move into the area and pay off that debt, but it's going to take probably 7 to 10 years before you see meaningful relief or a drop in that tax rate in a way that feels different to you. Now, the benefit of buying resale then is that more people have been paying on these MUD bonds for a longer period of time. So we generally see a pretty wide swing or a pretty big drop in the tax rate for homes in Fulshear that have been around for a while. So one that comes to mind, for instance, is Weston Lakes. Weston Lakes has been around for upwards of 30 years. The tax rate there is below 2%. Now, Weston Lakes has its own sort of features and benefits that cause it to be a little more expensive with their social memberships and their HOA dues. But if you're property tax focused, then that's a perfect example of how older communities have lower tax rates. Cross Creek Ranch opened with that 3.6 and above tax rate when it was new back in 2008-ish. And those tax rates are significantly lower now. They're kind of further in towards the mid-twos. So if you're property tax rate focused, which is going to be a pretty substantial bill at the end of the year, call it $10, $11, $12, $15,000, that's definitely something for you to pay attention to between new construction and resale. Something that I've noticed with almost every single buyer over the years is that people tend to assume that new construction is better when it comes to the quality of building materials. And that's something as your friendly neighborhood realtor that I have to gently object to. So when we have a buyer consultation, I will walk you through kind of the nuances of each phase of building. But what people are generally trying to say is that they believe that new is better and that it won't be as soon for them to have to replace major systems or do major improvements or, spend money on not fun things, quite honestly, right? But new construction today is not uniformly as good, I would say, as new construction was maybe 10 years ago. In the post-pandemic boom, I would say there were builders that really skimped on quality. in order to put homes down faster or to meet up with the demand, right? And the other problem too is that in this post-pandemic boom, land acquisition costs all got more expensive. So what that meant was the builders knew that they couldn't just pass 100% of the land costs onto the buyer. They have to eat some of that. And so what they did instead is they started to strip out some of the things that you might expect in a new construction home. Now, what I mean by that is that you might find a new construction home that is missing garage door automated openers. You might not have sprinklers. You might have brick on 3 sides of your home and not 4. You're not going to necessarily have French drains unless you're paying for it, right? And in a resale home, someone's lived there for 5 to 7 years. They might have already done those things, right? So it's very much on a case-by-case basis, and it's also budget-driven. If we're literally just looking to get our foot in the door and find a great home where we can establish value so that you can appreciate and have that first-time home buyer experience, I know that we can find you a great home. We just have to be a little bit more careful about how we go about it. If you're looking to buy luxury, I would say luxury is still untouched. People are spending all kinds of money to make their home just as beautiful as they always have been, most especially in Fulshear. Fulshear is kind of a funny little place where it happens to be one of the highest per capita income zip codes in the entire United States. So people who have money to spend continue to spend it, most especially in Fulshear. So if you're looking at higher end luxury new construction, I would say you're probably still good there. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis, and it's my literal job to help you sort through all of these things that you may not be thinking about. And with that in mind, one of my favorite things to do is a buyer consultation with folks just like you who are considering moving to the Fulshear area. If you want to get in contact, my contact information is in the description below. And if you found value in this video here today, make sure to click the link below and subscribe, because we put content like this out every single week. See you soon.